Good afternoon and welcome to Rise Above the North broadcast. This is your host, Cynthia Franklin, along with my co-hosts, Geraldine Thompson and Doris Taylor. We're so happy for you to join and listen in on this afternoon. It's Tuesday, the 11th day of May. My, how time is going by quickly. Next thing you know, it'll be November before we even turn around good. But anyway, we thank God for allowing us to see this day of this month. And we're so happy. I hope everyone had a wonderful Mother's Day weekend as we celebrated Mother's Day. And I created all the mothers, grandmothers, and daughters that are mothers. They all had a wonderful day, and they were surprised with different gifts and things. Just to celebrate mothers last week, Doris and I, we talked about the role as a mother and the what mothers mean and being a mom, and some were professional, and we also talked a little about the way things are changing now, how professionals are now in their 40s or 45 to 50 are having babies. They decide to start their family along with continuing to work. And that's a different trend. We also found out, Doris mentioned that in 2030, I believe she said that the majority of the populate world will be brown. And that's something to think about because the way the world is changing, things are changing. And, different cultures are now intertwining. They're going, intermarriages and stuff in the different cultures and different ethnicities, ethnicity, in the groups that they're all now, I guess they're falling in love. I would say if they're getting married or they're cohabitating together. But nevertheless, the world is changing around us. And we know that this month is the month that they celebrate Teachers Appreciation and also Nurses Appreciation. Next week, we have a nurse as one of our guests to talk about the challenges of being a nurse, a professional, and working. And not only that, but being a mother, a wife, and children, and talk about their career and some of the challenges. But today, we're going to talk about some of the challenges that that we may prepare, I'm sorry, to the challenges maybe 20, 25 years ago in the educational system. And today, we know, as we mentioned before, that Geraldine and also Doris are educators. They're retired educators. I believe Doris still works part time or little in her position. But just to talk about some of the challenges that the teachers may face today compared to the challenges that they may have encountered when they were in the school system as educators. Because 20 years ago, education mostly relied on books and lectures. Now, today, we have technology, iPads, websites. And in fact, and when you think about in the past, students spent a lot of hours in the library, doing research and projects. And that's another difference in today's student skill, today's education department, because now, as I said, they have technology. They can Google whatever they need to do. Most of them classes are online. They don't have a lot of interaction, especially with the pandemic. With a physical teacher now, we're slowly integrating back into a physical building, school, and teachers. But we know that, how the guys, their classes are, that they get the full extent. And, some children may have lagged behind, falling behind because of being out and doing online schooling. There is a lot of controversy about that. Some say that the children were not faring well, that they didn't learn, they weren't learning as they should have been learning or grasping the information as they would if they were in a physical classroom with the teachers there. And I can understand that because in a physical classroom, the teacher, you can't raise your hand if you're old enough in the upper grades, ask questions, the teacher can expound on an answer. But if you're online, you may have the opportunity. I don't know because I don't have children in my home that are doing homeschooling or online. I know my one of my niece homeschools her children, and which thought was a great idea. And she did that for years. And one today, as I mentioned that today, her oldest daughter is getting her bachelor's degree in what was that again? I know she's a cardiac. She graduated from Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia, one of the not a great school next to one of the Ivy League schools there. But today she's graduating from, I can't even think of the name of the college. Oh, wow. With her master's degree in molecule. Let me see if I can find that right quick. Uh, okay, she got graduated with a master in molecule medicine, and she always wanted. She dreams that she wanted to be a cardiologist, surgeon, but now she's in another field studying molecule medicine, and that's probably a great field to be in. In my niece's second daughter, she graduated. She's in a master's program now, but she's an author. Her book will be coming out 2022 in the fall, and she's into journalism and writing, and she does some teaching, high school teaching English, because she majored mostly in English courses. So we just say, some of the things. Just a shout out to them today for a great job. They were raised in a Christian home. So, and then I think that makes a difference because it didn't, and that, some people say may make be a drawback because they interacted with other homeschool children doing projects on field trips, but they didn't have a regular school setting. And the things that would happen if they were in a regular school, in different groups, they had friends, and they still have friends that they met, some in high school and some in college, but not the setting as today. Kids hang out. They see some kids being just sort of different things today. But today we're going to go on, like I was saying, talk about the challenges today versus the challenges that we had about 20 years, let's say 1990s up into 2005, 2004 maybe. And even today was facing the difference that they have because I remember when my daughters were in grade school and they were doing math and they started using a new mechanism of doing a new way of doing math. And I call it manipulatives, where they had different things that they needed to teach the children math. And I'm kind of figuring out, and they had calculators. I'm talking about, oh God, my daughters are like 38 now, 37, 38. And they were in third, second, third, fourth grade, fifth grade, and using calculators at that time, which I thought was really, like odd for them to use calculators because when we called it arithmetic when I was in school, the high school, later on college, they changed it to math.
Mhm.
But to me, in my opinion, it hindered the analytical side of the children, the students, because if they're using a calculator, the only thing they need to do is to learn how to use a calculator and put the numbers
Mhm.
in the calculator, give them the answer. When I grew up, we might have used our fingers, some say toes, but I know I just used my fingers when I was growing up, in that setting at that age. But after a while, we learned to do things. We're taught to think, to be analytical. I could do math in my head now. When I see something, I could do kind of calculate in my head that know what the answer is. I go in the store and I might someone my order might be $19 and 56 cents, and I give the young cashier maybe $20 and 56 cents. Sometimes you throw them off. They can't, if you give them 4 pennies, so if I give them 50, 20, 54, then they become stunned like, what, especially the register don't
Mhm.
tell them what change to give you back. And
Mhm.
I'll be like, okay, just give me, give me $1 bill, like give me $1 bill back. That's all you have to do, give me $1. And one young lady, she couldn't understand that, and like my register gonna be short. No, your register will not be short. So finally we kind of got the manager to come over. I'm just saying the difference is what we know how to do compared to them now and what they were doing. And I think I don't know if this can call a hindrance to the children, the way they're doing because there's a difference that they're being taught. Because years ago, the teachers, the educators taught children skills and um, well, no, 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 no. The difference today, I would say, okay, wait a minute, let me get it right now. Today, they're teaching skills instead of content. When we come up,
Mhm.
we got content. So I don't know what changed. So, ladies, good afternoon. Geraldine, good
Good
afternoon. Doris,
afternoon.
Good
Good
I
afternoon.
afternoon.
mean,
Good
let's talk.
afternoon.
Let's share a little bit about what we think is going on, what's happening today.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start because I know Doris can really delve into it more. But just as you were talking, I thought about myself. Go back to that first. Coming along, I like that better in that in being in school where the teacher stood in front of the class with a blackboard, put information on the blackboard, and taught us and just taught and taught and taught and make sure that we would get it, get our time, making sure we didn't have calculators. We had to do I had to do fingers and write on paper and mark off the lines and all those kinds of things. And we did not get in trouble, and we didn't have I don't know what it's called now, ideal or have to go to a class after school for punishment. We didn't have to do any of that. My day, they paddled, but then I had a particular teacher, Ms. Lyons, I'll never forget that nobody had to watch our class because we did, and I remember myself, it was always in me, and I did, thank God, made good grades, and I hung out with students that we made good, and sometimes we studied together. And coming along now, I think about my grandchildren. And, first of all, let me tell this. Even my oldest daughter, which is almost 50 now, but we lived in the county and I worked in the city. And when I found out that I could transfer her, I did, because that was a blessing, because she was slow in reading. And but in the county, they didn't do that. So in the city, she was able to go and be in a class on her level to help build her up. And so that was a blessing. I talked to the teachers, and I talked to another teacher that she said, well, you know what, she taught too in a different school system, but she said she still gave children their test according to their reading level. So I talked to her teacher about that. And she said, no, I got too much to do. And I don't know the proper term, Doris. They had, I'm saying Doris because she knows more about that. They had something from the state, a test or curriculum or whatever, that's proper word I need, that they had to go by. So she only had so much time to teach that. But see, in the meantime, my daughter was behind. And then I end up having her tested. And so she's still, and then that baffled them because, then prayer too, and trying to do the best I could with her, and then she passed and all that. And then when I moved her to the city and had her tested again, and she talked to, I remember Dr. Spiliotis, and he he said, my daughter's problem was, and this is his words, he said, my daughter's problem was that she did not have good teachers that taught her the proper skills and that she should have received. And he said that was really her problem. She did not have that. So, and I know this for a fact, and this is something that's really true. And then that some teachers and other students and my neighbor and worked in the class and all that, and another student I knew personally that said that particular teacher favored smart students. And so these things happen in the school system but I think about and then going to myself and teaching autistic children, which that took a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of love, a lot of caring. But I thank God, but then a lot of prayer. And I would just pray, okay, what can I do? How can I do to be the best that I can do in that kind of situation? And I got my neck choked, a lot of things happened. But in the end of the day, that because of the dedication, the commitment, and I had a particular student that I would make him talk, and because he could talk, and even though I had to go through, and so I did that, and he said, good morning, Miss Thompson, and he did, and his mother loved that because she said she appreciated the time that I took with him to help him. But when he went to next grade, because they got promoted just like everybody else, that teacher didn't do that for him. And he completely stopped talking. And I think about my grandchildren now, and I think Cynthia was talking about that, the things that the calculators and all this, and I look at online and all that, and to me, some things that especially one of my grandsons, is a lot of paperwork, just busy work, and I've watched them, and they just go through things so fast. I know it's virtual and all that, but I saw how they were not getting it as they need to because enough time wasn't taken out to make sure that the students could grasp what the skills, the proper skills that they need in order to do that. So even my daughter ended up, she had to get him a tutor in math. And now the Lord, he's doing better and keeping up now but otherwise, if he'd have stayed like that, he'd have been so behind and being his first year of middle school because of they were just going so fast and just giving them sheets after sheets after sheets after sheets to do. But he wasn't understanding it fully. And like she said, too, all this new stuff and the way they do, you can't do it like the old way. And so some of the children are missing out on a lot of things, and I see that. But it has to be a dedication and a commitment. And I think even with the officials, even over our state, and all these things, what things that the children need on every level. And I think that's important to be able to reach everybody on every level. And I think this is something that needs to be addressed in our school system, that everybody can be reached somehow, make some changes. I know it's a lot of work and a lot of money or whatever maybe, but if that dedication, that commitment to all children, that will be something great, I believe, that will cause even not some things, the trouble that some children get in because, see, they can't comprehend it. They don't have sometimes in their home somebody to help them. And I saw, even in my day in the school system also, I saw some teachers were so dedicated, and I know some still do it now. They work with the children after school, and they did all those kind of, even in my children, I made my daughter had to go after school, and the teacher had that commitment, that dedication, and to make sure they understood it. And even with mine, that's how they were able to pass the test. I don't know how to do that now still or not, but in order to graduate high school, they had to pass this particular test. And because even one of my own children, they had not had that, they probably wouldn't have passed the test. So all those things that I think that the changes and is so fast. Everything is fast. Everything is quick. Everything is more. I know the technology. I understand that, but everybody cannot grasp that. So I'll just stop and let you do it, Doris. You know how to.
But before you, I would just like to add something Geraldine said when she was talking about the way that things out there are done. I remember a young lady. She could do algebra, and but didn't know the basics of algebra, and that was really baffling to my husband because she could actually do algebra work, but she didn't know the foundation, the basics. So I think, and you were saying about your grandson Geraldine, with all this paperwork and everything, just pushed at them really fast. That the teacher, I don't know whether they have a time limit, a time span, whatever the right word is, that they have to get this the work out to the kids, or they have to teach this in a certain number of weeks, or do they just push it really fast and not giving the children time to grasp and to grab hold to get the basic. If you can get the basic foundation of any lesson down, you get that basic down, you get that foundation part down. I'm quite sure Doris will talk about that. Then you can do the work once you can grab the concept of the basic. Like I said, this young lady, she could do algebra, but to start from the basic, with the multiplication and going on, the YXC, she didn't know how to do all of that, but she could, you give her a problem to solve the problem, and that was really they never taught her the basic. So that was really, kind of like, that's kind of baffling.
Yeah, that's true. And excuse me, I'm sorry, but for Doris, I know that came to my mind. Even my own, going back to my daughter, the teacher was shocked that she did as well as she did on the test, though. She can't understand how she passed. That really happened. She couldn't understand that because she said sitting in class tonight she not get, but she could not understand how does she pass. She should know, and they were just shocked that even when they gave her this the test and all that in different in areas, and they said, well, how did she do that well? So it said that there's nothing really wrong with her thinking that something was wrong with something of this, but they couldn't. Well, how the teacher couldn't? Well, how can she do this? How can she? But and I'm sure today the same thing happens to some children. But what you said is true, that it takes time and it takes more effort with some children. And some states have they have schools, not a special ed school, so I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about they have students to go to this school that they can learn trade, they can do different things that will help them on their the level they can comprehend and understand. But it takes dedicated teachers to help them, and parents. The parents play a role too, and some homes don't have the parents that help them as they need, and so some children fall through the cracks.
Help the children if they dropped out of school.
Yeah,
So they're missing a lot of things themselves. And some parents cannot help the children. I know I wouldn't be if I had a kid in school or even raising a child in school at my age. I wouldn't be able to help them.
Yeah, I know. But I know. But I'm saying that this
we know Doris could, but we couldn't.
No.
Yeah, I know Doris could. Yeah, I mean,
oh no.
Yeah, that's true. All that stuff they're doing. So they shouldn't be able to drop out at 16. I still say that. I'm gonna keep on saying that they should not be able to. But go ahead.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And everything that you're saying is true. And I'm just going to kind of capsule what I see has happened in the realm of education from 20 years ago up to now. Of course, we know technology drives everything. We know that. And when I came along, like you all said, we were counting our numbers on the abacus. I know y'all remember those little balls that were on the little thing that was on abacus.
That's
and
right.
you did your multiplication tables on it and so forth and so on, and you would move the little balls and so forth. Well, that's long gone. And so every child now has a calculator in their hand, from the little ones on up to the high school with what they call the TI-85. That's one of the most advanced calculators you can use at high school. But I think what has happened, too, the educational field has transitioned from skill set to concepts. We don't teach skills like we did when I was coming along. When I was coming along, they taught phonics. Phonics is kind of almost obsolete. And I learned how to read by phonics. Some people say I never learned how to read by phonics. And we know we had configuration of words. You could take a long word and pronounce it better than you could a short word because they taught you how to configurate. Like elephant is a 3-syllable word. In rose, you could probably say elephant better than you could rose because of the configuration. Plus, they did pictorial vocabulary. They still do that, but not as much as they did before. But what has happened today, our kids are not getting, as Cynthia said, there is a foundation that you must have in math before you can do anything beyond like algebra. You have to have the 4 math concepts: multiplication, subtraction, addition, multiplication, and division. If you don't master that, you're going to have problems with math. I don't care what level it is. So what is happening, and a lot of times in some of the elementary schools, I'm not as familiar, but I work. My work is from middle to high school. They give kids a lot of worksheets, but they're not teaching them the skills that go along with those worksheets and the concepts. Sometimes the kids don't understand, and as you're saying, the pacing is so fast now. See, everything is paced. You have to have 25 chapters done by the end of November. So everything is paced, and the teachers are moving so fast. If you have a child who may have, a comprehension problem, which that's most of what reading is, that child is going to be lost because the comprehension already is low. And if you don't have a teacher who can catch that, and a lot of times, and I know you all know this, the classrooms now are larger than what they were years ago. They're larger. There are more kids. So if you don't have a teacher who's dedicated, has an all-seeing eye, and can catch that child and pull them aside, most classes in the elementary now have a teacher assistant, and pull that child out and put that child in a group with a teacher and a few other kids to catch up, that child is going to be left behind. I'm just telling you what's factual. It's going to be left behind. And they will struggle unless you have a parent in the home who sees and gets tutors. And unfortunately, y'all, I'm just telling what's fact. Our counterparts get their kids tutors more than we do.
Yes,
and
that's true.
that's a fact.
Yeah,
So our
yes,
kids
correct.
sometimes struggle. But moving away from the academia, and then high school is just another whole ball game. Moving away from the academia, the schools themselves have changed so much in the last 20 years until it would
Mhm.
just blow your mind. Kids are very on some levels they're disrespectful. They're not
Mhm.
held
Mhm.
accountable. They are not. They come to school like with, and I know we know this because this is the age we live in. It's all about me,
Mhm.
entitlement, me,
Yeah.
and parents today are becoming more friends to their children than they are parents to their children. And what has
Mhm.
happened is in the educational realm, when you have schools, kids coming to schools, especially at the high school level and the middle school level, we have a lot of times we're fighting or we're being combative or engaging with the parents in
Mhm.
sometimes a negative way because they don't want to hold the child accountable for what the
Mhm.
child should be held accountable for. And you can't, I don't blame all of it on the children because they're children. And the Bible says train them
Mhm.
up in the way they should go. And that's not just spiritually, that's naturally too. So
Mhm.
what has happened with our schools today, and then you have to remember something else. I don't know how well you remember this. Now you have teachers who are teaching your children who are not but a few years older than they are,
Mhm.
especially in
Mhm.
high school. You can have a
Yeah.
22-year-old teacher, and your child is 18.
Yes.
That's
Mhm.
just a 4 years gap, or sometimes less. We've had
Mhm.
teachers in our school who were 20 years old, and some of our kids were 20. Some of
Mhm.
the ones who didn't pass and all that. So you have a gap of a generation, not a generation gap. You have a gap between the kids and the teachers, and the
Mhm.
disrespect. I mean, the respect for the teachers at this level sometimes is bad. It's lost because we're not training our kids at home. I want to go
Mhm.
back to something you said, Geraldine, that's very profound. And
Mhm.
I don't know I can't remember when this changed. I'd have to look it up. I think somewhere along the 80s. We used to have reading classes. I don't know whether you all
Mhm.
remember that or not.
Yeah,
There
I
used to
do.
be
Yeah.
reading classes in school.
Mhm.
Well, and from elementary on up to high school. Well, in high school you don't have reading classes. In middle schools you don't have reading classes. The only way you have reading classes is in elementary now. And
Mhm.
that I think was one of the worst things they could have done is taken out the reading
Mhm.
class because when
Mhm.
I first started as an assistant principal at 71st High School, our students who were struggling with comprehension,
Right.
they had a reading class in
Mhm.
their schedule every
Mhm.
single day, and they
Mhm.
spent 45 minutes in a reading class. And if you can't read, you can't
Right.
do anything, and
Mhm.
that helped them. And I can see the teacher now. She's with us now, as a matter of fact. She's getting ready to retire. She was one of the best reading teachers I
Mhm.
have. She took kids who didn't hardly know the cat, Sally, nothing else, and those kids, by the time they got to the 10th
Mhm.
and 11th grade,
Mhm.
they were
Mhm.
reading on an 8th or ninth grade level, which is pretty
Mhm.
good. They
Mhm.
started out reading some of them on a 3rd, 4th, and 6th grade level. So what happened was, I don't know why the state did this, but they have
Yes.
pulled the reading classes from the curriculum, and the only way you get a reading class now is you have to be in the special ed and you take
Mhm.
a study skills class, and that's where you can get a reading class, which is really a disnomer to our other kids because you
Yes.
have a small population of special ed kids, so that
Mhm.
means 89 or 90% of the kids don't get that. And that is
Right.
something I never understood, and especially it helped our children. And
Yes.
it's not that
Yes.
the children.
Yes.
I would say something to y'all. It's not that the children are not smart. A
Yes.
lot of
Right.
a lot of our deprivation comes from culture and environment. It's
Mhm.
not that the children are not smart, but if you take a child and put them from, let's say, from an environment where they come from a dysfunctional home,
Mhm.
nobody's looking out for them, nobody helps them home, and put them in an environment at school where they can get all the help they need, those
Mhm.
kids will rise above the noise.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
will be academically astute. I've seen it. I used to teach reading. I've seen it happen. And so a lot of times we want to say, well, they just don't know. They're just dumb. No, that's not true.
Mhm.
And if you go
Yeah.
back and look in the educational chronicles, you can see that some kids are deprived because of culture and environment, not because of intellectual IQ abilities. And that's
Mhm.
something we have kind of lost in the vein. And
Mhm.
and we have to be very careful that we don't brand children because we think they are not smart, because a lot of times it's just they've been deprived of some things. Kids
Yes.
who travel all over the country during the summertime will know more than kids who don't go nowhere but in their county. they will always know more than you
That's
do
right.
because they have firsthand experience. What I'm getting is secondhand experience. They don't have that. So I think another thing today is we have a lot of disparities among our communities. I don't know whether you all know this, and you probably do. If you look in the county, if you were to take Cumberland County, I'm going to talk about my county, and you were to look at it on a map, they have redlined certain districts that where you look at it, it's either all black, mostly 95%
right.
African American, and the other ones may be 95% up Caucasian. And that was done. That's a systemic type of thing, which is really not good. And then you know who's going to be lacking. The kids who live in those communities, that district will not get as much money and funding as the kids who live in that district that is almost all white. And it's a systemic, it's an economic, cultural, educational, racial, systemic problem. And when you look at it, a lot of times we say, if you take it, we have a high school here called Westover. Westover is one of the worst high schools we have in this area. I'm not talking about the economics, but I'm talking about as far as student population. And then you have another school not too far, right down the road, called Terry Sanford, which is one of the best high schools economy-wise in the county, because a lot of your neighborhoods around there are rich kids. Well, if you could pull those kids from Westover and give them the same opportunity to go over there and sit with those kids at Terry Sanford, I'm telling y'all, because we've seen it happen. If you would zone them, because you have to rezone, those kids, it would amaze you how much they would get so much more than what they're getting there, because you're dealing with a 95% or 96% black population, people of color, and that's what has happened. That's a disparity in our school system. Trying to work on it, but that has always been a problem with us here in Cumberland County, and I'm sure it's across the state and across the nation. And because we know about redlining, this happened years ago, back in the 30s, and that's why a lot of times you end up with communities that are disproportionately economically disadvantaged and so forth. And if we don't change that, we're going to always have that, because education, for one, is not equal to the education for another. It all depends on where you are. Yeah. And that's one thing that I have to change.
I've seen
also, Doris, I was thinking that what my husband, he grew up in here in Parkton, and he always said the worst thing that could have happened when they integrated the schools, because he grew up in an all-black school, going to black, I guess elementary to high, graduated from a black high school. I think his class was the last one they graduated from, Oak Ridge High in Parkton. And just to think that, like you were saying, the disparity in the economic area, the children and section, how you said they did the red line and the zoning for the children. But when you think about it, even during that time, my husband's about your age, even during that time, when you thought about it, the teacher cared. The teachers became educated
back in that day.
Because they had a heart. They had a heart for teaching. And I agree with you. Yes, certain areas, certain schools, that's in any state, depending on, the economic area that you're living in, and, middle class, upper class, you would have the best thing because of the tax money, and then they put the taxes, that they put money into those, more money for schools into those areas than they would into a lower tax area school. And I think sometimes, my opinion, if the parents, if the people, not just parents, but anyone, any person that's living in those communities was concerned about just the children themselves, our children themselves, would get together. I remember growing up, we didn't have a lot of after school programs. They did when I guess my younger sister and them were growing. They had a lot of after school programs. They had different churches, different community centers that did after school programs. People volunteered to work with the students, the African American students, so they can come up to parts of where they needed to be. That and a lot of parents got involved. But like I said, when the parents start becoming younger, I think that's when we dropped the ball. And even a lot of some churches had provided after-school program volunteering, and maybe they got a little help, I guess, with having a 501c3. I'm not sure, but just to provide these things for the kids in the neighborhood that they will grow. I know a friend of mine in Connecticut, her daughter started her business of a tutoring. She's doing really great. The students coming out there doing really just like those Kuma or Kun, whatever tutoring companies that's out there that's teaching. But she's doing an excellent job, and she takes any kid that parents want them in that's willing to learn, and they set up and they teach them so that they can become just as good of their SAT scores and the other testing scores will be just as great as any other student that they were sitting next to.
Exactly.
But I think along the line you're saying it's cultural, and yes, it is, and some of it. But we dropped the ball somewhere down the line. We became more busy this time in our Christian walk and our born again believer walk with Christ. We dropped the ball. We become lax in everything. We became more concerned about our own selves, our own household, our own children. Gaining popularity and making money, having big cars, houses, and whatever. That we forgot that we forgot the ones coming up behind us what they needed. So a lot has to do with the citizens of us in the
and it has to be enough of us too, though. It has to be enough.
We're not active.
Yeah,
we're not active. We're not going out. And I heard this on WIDU the other day. I like to listen to this particular. I think it's not the round table. It was another show that sometimes the mayors up there with them with some more people, and they were talking about this yesterday, about the disparity in the community and how the churches are not involved. Not just the churches, but the leaders of the church are not coming to the city council meeting, putting those people that they elect, putting fire on the feet that they do what they said they're going to do when they're coming out to get the votes. After we elect them, we say, okay, and then the people don't do what they say they're going to do. Yesterday, they said some things it's because of Raleigh that come down from Raleigh. I guess it's overseeing a mandate or whatever. But then if they're electing people in Raleigh, they should go to Raleigh, the people there, and, see what the politicians that they elected on different stances. What are you doing? I mean, you say you're going to do this and nothing and that, but your hands may be tied, but at least you could put in the effort. You need people to get up and rally or go down, to speak up. See, that's what I'm saying. It's just like a big circle. You can't pinpoint one person, but I do know that even when you think about it, with the children, the children, we know that, like you said, Doris mentioned something about the kids traveling. The students that travel during the summer, yes, that they would know more, that their mind is more broader, they're more educated by the different sites and things that they've been to, that they've seen.
Sure they are.
That have not traveled anywhere, that stays in their own community all the time in their house, not exposed to it. But a lot of things, I think, and somebody said something about reading. I love to read. My mother was a reader. All of us pretty much. Some of them like to read, but I think I'm about the most avid reader in my family. Everybody else will read, but I love reading. I love buying a lot of books. In fact, I got a whole lot of them boxes. I can get shelves to put them on because I like to read. And to me, reading is knowledge. What you know, people cannot take from you. Whatever you know, they cannot take it from you. Your knowledge, they can't take it.
Exactly.
But I think parents don't encourage children to read because they have, as Jordan mentioned, I don't remember if we were just talking or either one Bible study or something about but they have all these games. They got all this other kind of entertainment. They don't have
technology. Technology, yeah.
They don't know how to win a game. That's all they have to think about.
Yeah, but that's what Darcy. But see, the attitudes of that, the kids are different. The parents now looking at buying. They buy their children so much.
Right.
So the children don't think about academically. They can do. They do their lesson. They make sure they do their lesson. I've seen some of my own grandchildren, but they grumble and complain about that. And but as soon as they have peace, joy, happiness when they get finished and want to do the game. So because when my children came along, I worked with the program, and then we had all the books that came in and the extras or whatever that didn't choose. I was, be able to use those, and they had all this extra work, and I gave them extra work and all that stuff, and that they had to help them to get ahead. I said, no, you need to get ahead. Oh, the teacher said read chapter 2. I said, no, read chapter 3 too. I was doing that with my own children, you see. That's what I told them, and made them do. And I said, but now, as you said, the generations now don't do all this. It takes time. It takes energy,
they really don't, yeah.
and that commitment, and then they have all kinds of parents. Even I saw this in the school system myself. It wasn't one of our students or anything, but one of the students, because it's still in the school system, in the school with the regular students as well as special needs. So, but then I went in to use the phone, and then the parent was sitting there using all kind of foul language. Okay, and so the children be exposed. So I think, why you think the children act the way they do? Like I think Dara said, people have a chance. It's in them. They are smart. They're better, but because of what they're exposed to, and so they're going to be the same way. So they're not going to have that desire. And I was just looking around when I went out to the trash can, and I'm looking at the time, and I saw 3 children. I said, well, I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, shouldn't they be doing schoolwork?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they're outside playing with water guns.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm just saying, the elementary children, you can tell the elementary school children, I know, because Cumberland County is open, right, Darcy?
Oh, yeah. I just
okay.
about 2 hours ago.
Okay. And then 11 o'clock school was open, right? 11 school.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking, and so to let the kids get by, and then some situations the parents aren't working, they're gone, and the children do. Because I've had to get again on my own grandchildren when they come to my house. I have to make sure I have to take the phone or, hey, what you doing? You supposed to be, oh, grandma, the teacher not ready. I said, no, you not being on the phone though. See, they still so it's a whole lot of fact. It's so different, and so many of our kids get lost through the cracks, and they drop out in drugs and alcohol games, do all kinds of things because they can't get it and nobody's there for them.
Right. And Cynthia said something so profound. There has been a breakdown in the structure of the family because I don't care what nobody says. Your education begins in your house. Until nobody says that's where it begins.
Yeah.
Because the first people to teach you are your parents.
Yes.
That's teachers don't teach us. The first people to teach all of these children, all of us, are our parents. And Cynthia said something, even though I was, we were dealing with from 1990 up to now. When we came along, and like Cynthia said, my mother bought. I know y'all did too, because everybody did it. She bought us a set of World Book encyclopedias. I will never forget that. And along with that World Book encyclopedias, people just go around and sell it like they sold insurance. Came a set of books that you could read. They were all kind of stories and geography and all that. And I'm like, Cynthia, I read all the time. When I was 12 years old, I was reading The Count of Monte Cristo and didn't even know what I was reading. I just read. That's all. You couldn't go to the movies. We couldn't do anything. But the children are not reading, y'all. I'm telling you, I promise you, they're not reading. And especially sometimes they're not reading. And the books the classics that we read back in the day, and I know some of them have taken off the reading list because of, the racist stuff, but I never Huckleberry Finn, I love Huckleberry Finn. I never saw all Mark Twain's books, I love them. Little House on the Prairie, there used to be a movie on TV. I love the Little House on Prairie. I read all those books. The Hardy Boys, I read those books. And
Nancy Drew.
Nancy Drew. I read all the Nancy Drew books. But children are not reading today. Cotton in the Field. I read all those books. And because of that, like Cynthia said, reading is knowledge. I knew so much by the time I was 12, but I didn't know it because I traveled. I knew it because I got it secondhand by reading about it. So we would bring our kids back to reading. And that, like I say, reading is the foundation for your learning. Everything that you do is based on how well you learn. So and I think it's really sad. And y'all said, all of us said this, we sometimes are our own problems because we're so busy buying our children $200 tennis shoes instead of taking them to someplace like Barnes & Nobles or Walmart and buying them a book and let them read. We don't do that. We just mess them up and they don't have anything in their head.
Yes. And I would get in trouble growing up because I would lay down on the sofa and read a book when I should have been doing my chores. And my mom would always be fussing with me because, I'm reading instead of doing what I'm supposed to. I keep saying to her, I would say, Mom, I'm going to do it. Let me finish this chapter. Let me finish this chapter. And but that would just always spin me and my husband. I love to read. And I just,
Mhm.
I like to read. I don't do a lot of self-help books, but I like to read a lot of books on like leadership, and not only that, and I read different commentaries on the different Bible
Mhm.
chapters, books of the Bible, and especially my favorite one like Isaiah and Jonah, and then some of the other ones that I love reading. And a lot of times I can just go because I can always pick out something different. And I mean, I even read. Sometimes I used to read some of what was her name, Terry? I forgot her name. Been in her books in a long time.
Terry
Oh
Moore.
my
Is it
Lord,
Moore?
Terry, who? Um,
Moore? Is it
I
Moore?
know Tony. I read Toni Morrison,
Yeah, Toni
and
Morrison. Oh yeah.
yeah, I did. I read a lot of her books, and Ayana Bansat, whatever her name
Van
is, and
Sapp. Yeah,
but
Van Sapp.
yeah,
Van
and,
Sapp.
and I did a lot of Terry. I can't think of Terry's last name, but I read a lot of different Black author books, in my 20s.
Mhm.
Things I picked some of those and read, but I read a lot of different, other authors' books too. I like romance and especially historical romance books, and so I was always just reading and knowledge. But I like history, so I would read some different things in history. But I'm just saying because my mother allowed us, and I remember when I couldn't wait. I must have been like 11 or 10 years old in the summertime. I don't know if you guys had it here in North Carolina, but a mobile library unit would come around
Yep.
once
Yep. It
once
still
a
does.
month, every
Yep.
3 weeks or
Yep.
something, would come to your
Mhm.
neighborhood, and you could
Mhm.
get your books, and then they come back, you
We had
return the
that.
other books, and you get
Mhm.
new books during the
Yep.
summertime, while you were
That's
out
right.
of school. And I
Mhm.
think that's what happened because a lot of times, even when kids are out of school, they're not old enough to work. The younger ones, the parents are not still reinforcing, of a lack of a better word,
Mhm.
to their lesson that they learned, during the year, so that
Mhm.
because the teacher goes back over in the beginning of the school year before they go into something
Right.
new. They used to. I
Right.
don't know what they're doing now, so I shouldn't even say that. But they keep it even moving on. Get books for the next grade level that your child is going into, to help them so they be kind of prepared and not just sit around let them play all summer long, don't do anything. And then I read that somewhere in, I don't know if it was China or Japan. I'm not sure which country, but their children, like we have here in North Carolina, I don't know if Connecticut ever started that. They have the year-round school, and over there in
Mhm.
their country, the kids went to school year-round. Every so often they has like a week or two off. But
Mhm.
they were saying, was one of the statistics that I read, they were saying that's why that those particular ethnic groups of children
That's so smart.
growing up, they're a little further ahead. I wouldn't say where they said
Mhm.
smart. I would just say a little further ahead than American
Mhm.
children because they never had the opportunity to lose anything because they were
Mhm.
constantly studying, constantly going. Your mind is working. You get a break, but then you're right back at it again. The studying, and you're getting if you're
Mhm.
not stopping and missing anything for like how many days are out of school? 60 days out of school, Doris. I'm not sure. 8 weeks or what? I don't know.
About yeah, a little
About
about 60,
8 weeks.
little yeah, about 58, yeah, 60. Mhm.
Yeah. So during that time, they're not losing that time that the parents let the kids play. Instead of
Mhm.
no, go to the library. We can't too much now. Go to the library. Take them in a section they're age appropriate. The little
Mhm.
kids, they sit in the garden, pick them out something to learn, pick them out their. Now I remember
Mhm.
my daughter-in-law. She's gone. She passed now, but my granddaughter, she just turned 21. When she was 2 years old, she could write her name. She could read because she had some of her nieces that was like in the fourth and fifth grade. They sat there and they taught her how to do these things. And they
Wow.
went to apply to put her and my grandson into a private Christian school, from kindergarten to first grade. So my granddaughter, she came out of high school a year early. She skipped a grade, and I came out at 17 years old. She's almost ready
Mhm.
now to complete college. She's as a PA assistant,
Mhm. Mhm.
and but she's always been smart. But because they didn't just let her sit around, they played games where they taught them what they were learning. I like that about the younger kids, and I don't know if younger kids in family settings do that now. Teach the older children teach the younger one like what they're learning in school. So I don't know now, nowadays if that happens or not.
Mhm. Yeah, you're right. Then that's what we are, and unfortunately, and the Bible has already said this: they get weaker and wiser, and unfortunately,
Yes.
things are not going to get better somewhat in some aspects as far as how the kids are, their behavior sometimes. Yet they're
Mhm.
getting wiser, but if you look at them, they're becoming more evil. And all this stuff that they're
Yeah.
doing, all this cyber stuff, all this cyber bullying, all this is done by young people, and so they may be getting smarter as far as concepts, but they're getting some of them are becoming very destructive as far as humanity,
Yes, there are,
and that's
and we
sad.
thank
That's a sad
everyone.
thing.
Is that
Yeah.
Geraldine? Did I hear Geraldine?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
Hello.
I think she said.
Okay.
I know she said she had to leave, so I thought I heard her say something
Yeah. Okay.
before. But we thank everyone for tuning in again with us. Go on, Rise Above the Noise broadcast. We're so happy to have you here today, and tune in next week and join us. Geraldine had to leave early, but anyway, we know, as she's always said, that you can see her or listen in on her Bible study YouTube on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. She does every Wednesday, I believe, 12 noon, a midweek um, moment for a little tidbits, just some encouragement for that
Mhm.
day or for the rest of the week. And on Sundays at 11:15 on YouTube, that you can join and see her. So you can also, I don't know her email address, but next week when you to go back to listen to some of the other broadcasts, and you can, get that information. And we thank you again for joining us. And Doris Taylor. Doris.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, this is Doris Taylor, the pastor of Agape Ministry, and of course, I hope everybody has enjoyed this day. I think it's very informational for us to look at how the education system has changed. But you can join me on Sunday morning, Facebook Live at 11:30. We're located at 2801 Ramsey Street here in the heart of Fayetteville, and also again on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. our Bible study, and we'd love for you to join us in either of those services. And our church page is Agape Church Family.
Okay, and I would like to say for everyone to enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend, and make it a prosperous day and a prosperous week. Do something that you
Amen.
enjoy doing. And then
Amen.
tune in with us next Tuesday at 1:30 and Rise Above the Noise broadcast. God bless.
God bless.